I wasn't planning on going back to the Zelda series so soon, especially after giving the series so much attention earlier this year. By the way, that was almost a year ago. Let that sink in for a moment there. This past April, something that I totally didn't see coming occurred. An announcement of a sequel to my favorite Zelda game, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, titled The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Of course, I was pretty excited. Not just because of its relation to the SNES classic, but because it looked like a Zelda game I would get a lot of enjoyment from. So I picked this game up the weekend it came out and played the hell out of it for the sake of seeing how it stacks up to its predecessor, as well as for this review. I cannot believe it's been 22 years since the release of A Link to the Past, but does this game contain the same magic to make it a great game? Hopes are high, but we're going to find out now. Excluding Link's Awakening on the Game Boy, my handheld Zelda experience overall is very bare. I've dabbled a bit with the Oracle games. I think I sampled the Minish Cap at one point or another, and I never came close to completing the likes of Phantom Hourglass or Spirit Tracks. In fact, I don't even think I played this one at all. The Legend of Zelda was always a series I preferred on consoles, but with the technological advancements of handhelds nowadays, I didn't really mind that A Link Between Worlds was released for the Nintendo 3DS. Since this game is still relatively new, I won't spoil the plot too much, but if you played A Link to the Past, you should know what to expect for the most part, even though we're dealing with a different Link, a different Zelda, and a different villain altogether. Our journey begins with Link being woken up by Gully, the son of a blacksmith who makes weapons for Hyrule soldiers. Link is tasked with delivering a fresh, minty new sword to the captain of Hyrule's forces, but when he reaches the sanctuary, he runs into a pale-looking wizard who neutralizes Link and traps the priestess daughter into a painting, kidnapping her after doing so. This man, as you'll soon find out, is named Yuga, who already gets a thumbs up in my book for looking pretty creepy, and for having a name much easier to pronounce than Jerry. Yuga leaves the unconscious Link, essentially sealing his fate, with Link soon waking up to the sight of this odd-looking person. The bunny man introduces himself as Ravio, who's looking for a place to stay, with Link sort of begrudgingly allowing him to stay at his place. Ravio gives Link an old bracelet as thanks, and Link heads off to do something about Yuga. A short trip to Hyrule Castle causes Link to meet with this game's Princess Zelda, who gives Link the Pendant of Courage as a special charm, and tells him that he should locate the elderly Sahasrahla to find the means to defeat Yuga. Predictably, the old man states that the 3 sacred pendants are needed in order to obtain the Master Sword, the blade that, once again, gets shit done. If that didn't scream A Link to the Past to you already, perhaps the very foundation of Hyrule will. It's almost note for note, with a few differences here, a new location there. You still got Kakariko Village, Lost Woods, Death Mountain, the desert area, the areas filled with River Zoras, the potion shop, I can go on and on. Thanks to the dual screens of the 3DS, all the action is displayed on the top screen, with this nifty map in your inventory taking up the bottom screen. The map is just as useful as it was in A Link to the Past, thankfully, and you can even set markers on locations you plan on revisiting when you have the means to reveal its secrets. Pretty cool. Along your voyage, you'll run into this witch known as Irene, who'll provide you a means to instantly travel to locations previously visited via these weather vanes that also act as save points, so traveling from one place to another should never feel like a tiring chore. You can only save your game via these weather vanes, however, so if you need to stop in the middle of your dungeon crawl, it's best to just put the game in sleep mode and pick it up at a later time. Combat and movement are once again great assets to Link. He can swing his sword very fast, leading to quick kills, and the analog stick allows for control even smoother than the likes of A Link to the Past. Picking up and throwing things doesn't exactly feel as satisfying as it did in the SNES game, but it's still there, and I'm grateful I don't need to constantly equip a power bracelet to lift shit up. Link's Awakening is still a fine game. I think I just saved myself a bunch of ignorant comments by saying that. Hopefully. Now, if you're thinking this is simply just A Link to the Past with a graphics and interface update, well, that's where Ravio comes in and bonks you on the head with a wrench. Before you can even enter the first dungeon, Ravio lends you the bow and arrow to activate the switches needed to open the door to the dungeon. At the end of it, Yuga manages to trap Link into a painting, but thanks to Ravio's bracelet, he's able to escape and gains a new ability altogether. When you hug a wall, Link can transform into a 2D painting and travel along the wall, leading to secret passages, crevices that hold a solution to the current problem, and also acts as a means to avoid incoming attacks. I love doing that, specifically against wall masters. With this ability, what started as a simple graphical update of Hyrule from A Link to the Past ends up becoming a smorgasbord of new content and secrets. If you played the previous game before this, then having the knowledge of that game and how it works will do a good job in helping you find some secrets in this game, but it becomes a completely different beast when the painting ability comes into play. Not only do you have to deal with completely redesigned dungeons, but now you also have to take into account of when's the best time to use the merging ability to solve or get around particular puzzles. On top of all of this, when you complete the first dungeon, Ravio allows you to rent just about every major upgrade the Zelda series is known for right off the bat. The slamming power of the hammer, the coolness of the hookshot, the destructive power of the bomb, the majestic fire and ice rods, it's all here, and you're free to use them all at once for a small rental fee and as long as you don't die. To say A Link Between Worlds is one of the most open-ended Zelda games in a very long time would be the understatement of the year. You can obtain and discover so many rupees and secrets like heart pieces before heading into the second dungeon, and hey, if you're not that type of player, you can always just head straight into the dungeons because you have the means to get there thanks to Ravio. This game does a fantastic job of pleasing both the explorative crowds and the folks who enjoy a streamlined adventure. Even though you have access to all these tools so early in the game, exploring dungeons and obstacle courses still offer a great degree of fun, not just because of finding different ways to bypass certain puzzles, but because of the added accessories that Link can find to upgrade himself. I was a little curious about this when I first heard about Ravio's rental shop via Nintendo Directs and development interviews. If I have access to all of these magnificent toys from the get-go, what exactly do I have to look forward to when opening big chests and dungeons? The moment I saw the Hylian shield inside a big chest, I said, alright, I can still upgrade myself. Later in the game, for the right amount of rupees, you can actually buy the tools from Ravio to keep for yourself, regardless if you die or not, which I think is a good incentive for hoarding as many rupees as you can. Not that it's hard to do so, mind you. You have 4 digits on your rupee counter for a reason. Whether it's mini-games with huge payouts, the occasional secret chest with silver or gold rupees, you'll be rolling in the dough in no time. Lastly, if upgrading Link or permanently buying tools wasn't enough for you, you can upgrade your purchased weapons via this large creature known as Mother Maiamai. Every time you help her find 10 of her babies, which are scattered all across the map similar to the golden Skulltulas in Ocarina of Time, she can enhance your tools to be more effective, like a more powerful fire wave from the fire rod, a triple shot from the bow and arrow, or a bigger blast radius from bombs. Like A Link to the Past, there's always something to be on the lookout for in this game, and there's always a reward to look forward to. By now, you probably noticed that purple bar. That's your energy meter. Unlike previous Zelda adventures, there's no ammo count for the likes of arrows or bombs, or a separate magic meter for the likes of the rod weapons or accessories. Every time you use a tool or the merging ability, it costs a certain amount of energy to use, with the energy bar constantly refilling itself when you're not using it. In my opinion, I like this system. Not having to worry about ammo for projectile weapons, or having enough magic to use a specific rod just makes the adventure more fast-paced and fun to me. There are occasions where I find myself having to wait for the bar to refill in order to continue my onslaught with weapons, or to make sure I can travel within walls without prematurely exiting, but if you know how to effectively consume your energy meter, this should never be an issue. The only thing you should ever keep in mind is knowing what to use and when to use it. Ugh, this asshole again. Well, too bad for you, I got the hammer this time, bitch. Gonna stun your ass and easily take you out. Yeah! All the more cathartic considering the amount of aggravation he gave me in A Link to the Past. It's the little things in life, folks. With all 3 pendants acquired, Link is able to retrieve the Master Sword from the Lost Woods, and Yuga, like clockwork, suddenly decides to raid Hyrule Castle to capture Princess Zelda in a painting along with the other 7 sages of this Hyrule. Yuga escapes into the strange crack on the wall, with Link chasing right after him. Upon entering the crevice, Link is teleported to a different world in a sequence that kinda reminds me of when Mario entered the parallel Brooklyn in the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Link soon after meets up with Yuga again, where he reveals that he captured the princess along with the 7 sages to revive Ganon and obtain his Triforce of Power. Yuga does just that, but also manages to fuse with the resurrected Ganon, giving Yuga complete control. However, before he can manage to use his newfound strength, a girl suddenly appears and traps Yuga Ganon with her power. She then introduces herself as Princess Hilda, who has failed us in every way. It's not the most glorious of titles, but it does make for an interesting business card. Princess Hilda claims that she's the ruler of this dimension, cleverly but not so cleverly named Lorule. She manages to hold Yuga Ganon long enough to warp Link out of the castle, where she then telepathically informs our hero that the 7 sages will need to be freed from their corresponding palaces if Link wants to stand any chance of defeating Yuga Ganon. If you played A Link to the Past before, or at the very least seen my review of it, then this should look plenty familiar to you. Lorule is this game's Dark World, similar appearance, similar music, similar concept altogether. Link can interchange between the 2 worlds by entering these dimensional fissures located all across Lorule and Hyrule respectively. And if you thought A Link Between Worlds was open-ended enough at this point, then welcome to the second half of the game, where you can tackle any palace in any order you choose, with the exception of the Desert Palace, which requires you to get the Sand Rod first by completing the Thieves' Hideout. Again, because you're able to have access to all the staples of the Zelda franchise thanks to Ravio, you already have the means to enter the palaces at your leisure. Do you go after the Swamp Palace first to get the Blue Mail to increase your defenses, or how about the Ice Ruins to extend your energy meter? The Dark Palace for Skullwoods to gain materials to beef up your Master Sword?
The choices are yours, and yours alone.
Thanks, Olmec. But yeah, you can go about the second half of the game in just about any way you choose. You can go from palace to palace just like that, Or you can begin farming rupees to buy equipment from Ravio, locate every Maya for an upgraded arsenal, unravel all of Lorule and Hyrule secrets, or collect as many heart pieces as your heart desires. With the 3DS Street Pass feature, you can battle other players' versions of Link, represented by Dark Link from Zelda 2. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain since you don't lose items like potions when ingested during battle, and you could potentially score a ton of rupees depending on how strong the Dark Link is. There are a number of possibilities to consider, and because of that, Link Between Worlds has an enormous amount of replayability, assuming you like this sort of thing to begin with. I must have been exploring for hours traveling all across the two worlds to beef up my hearts and gear, all before even coming close to finishing off all 7 palaces. I will say that it's not always a good time, particularly when trying to locate specific Maya or playing certain minigames to score a heart piece. This baseball minigame can be the pits, even when you know what you're doing. For the sake of time, I won't go too into it, but what the hell causes the ball to home in on the bird for an easy 20 rupees? Then there are other times when a journey to a specific heart piece or bonus can be pretty dull. Not really a big fan of this floating platform sequence in Death Mountain, it kinda drags. This level of non-linearity sort of comes at a price though. A Link Between Worlds is pretty easy. It's loads of fun, but if you're looking for a challenge, well, you can either limit the amount of hearts you want, not use specific tools, or beat the game once and unlock Hero Mode, which makes just about everything hit like a fucking tank. All of the dungeons in Lorule feel about the same in terms of difficulty, and even though the very sight of another ice dungeon similar to that of the one in the SNES game makes my blood boil, I don't think it's nearly annoying as the original Ice Palace, nor do I find any of these dungeons harder than one another. I imagine that can get pretty boring for some players. Despite coming nowhere near close to dying, even when I had emergency fairies or blue potions to drink when low on health, that didn't negate the fact that I had a very fun time with this game. The bright and cartoony 3D graphics, the presentation overall, the magnificent orchestral soundtrack that brings familiar themes and new pieces to the series, and the smooth 60 frames per second are just the icing on this Hylian dessert. It should be worth noting, even after everything I discussed, notwithstanding the changes to the traditional Zelda formula, the open-ended structure, and slightly different story, I wouldn't call A Link Between Worlds a sequel to A Link to the Past, but rather a reimagining. It pretty much has all the elements that made A Link to the Past what it was, while simultaneously doing its own thing, and having production values similar to those of the 3D console Zelda games. Demographically speaking, Zelda enthusiasts will most likely get the greatest enjoyment out of this game thanks to all the winks and nods the game delivers to past Zelda games and fans, especially if you played A Link to the Past before this one. But even the likes of newcomers should find a good time with A Link Between Worlds thanks to its user-friendly interface, and perhaps even detractors of the SNES original may find something to like with this game. That last part is all conjecture on my behalf, but A Link Between Worlds is not just a great Zelda game, but also a great game overall. Now why the fuck do I have Majora's Mask hanging on my wall? A lot of you have probably noticed that this review wasn't that much different from the Link to the Past review, but I should stress again, A Link Between Worlds does enough things differently to have its own identity, but at the same time it still shares a ton of Zelda conventions that I can only go into so much detail about without coming off as a broken record. The bottom line is, this is a great game, and you should definitely add it to your 3DS collection if you haven't done so already. With all that said guys, thank you guys for watching, have a nice night, and what the hell.